Welcome to LeapFrogBI Academy course CT100, Connection Components. In this course, we are going to first define what a connection component is. Then we're going to step through the process, very short process, of actually creating a connection component. We're going to review project life cycles and discuss life cycles in the context of connection components. And then we're going to discuss how life cycles configuration packages use connection components. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to be creating a connection component to our source system that we are using throughout these Academy courses, which is the AdventureWorks 2012 database. Just want to briefly point out that my instance name here locally is AUSTX01 SS 2012. So this is where we're going to be creating a connection to. If I move over to a browser now, where I've navigated to LeapFrogBI and log in, now I'm logged into the LeapFrogBI Academy account. I'm going to move to my project area, and I'm going to select the CT100 Connection Component Project and set that as my current project. Okay, so a connection component. What is a connection component? It's very simple. A connection component is a connection definition to some resource. And these connection definitions are going to be utilized by all the other components. So when I'm creating stage, PSA, and transform, and so on, types of components, in the process of creating those components, I'll be selecting the connection that I want to use for those components' destination, for example. By separating the connection component from the actual stage, PSA, and so on types of components, we're able to simplify the process of maintaining those components, and we're also able to make all of those components portable. So I can simply rebuild a configuration based on my connection definitions, which we'll talk about in a later course. But by rebuilding that configuration definition, I can then simply move my components between environments, and they'll utilize that environment or life cycles configuration. So let's take a quick look at what life cycles we have set up here in this project. We have 3 life cycles. There's a development, test, and production. It's very typical. So that's pretty simple. And while we're at it, why don't we take a quick look at the project prefixes. Not that they make a lot of difference to connections, but I can see that we're not going to prefix anything except for dimensions and facts. And we have a field prefix of LFBI underscore. Okay, so let's quickly create a connection component. Navigate here to my component types. I went ahead and selected connection. I could also select the type of component here. The first thing I want to do is just click on the Create New button. And this is where I select the type of connection I'm going to be creating. You can see that there are a variety of types. There's SQL Server native client connection, a generic OLADB where I can provide a connection string. I've got some Excel and flat file connection types. So I'm going to create a SQL native client 11 connection. Select that template. I'm going to give this a name. I'll call this my AdventureWorks connection. And for status, I'll just say this is complete. So it'll be done as soon as I'm complete here. Now, this connection has an input area for each of the different life cycles. So my development life cycle here, I have all of the properties that I want to provide for my connection. I have a test life cycle, and I can provide the properties for that in production, just like we saw in the life cycles for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this out real quick, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I filled out all the properties. Let's just take a look at one set of properties here. So the server name, this is a SQL Server Native Client 11. This is one of the properties that is required. So I've input my server and instance name here for the development lifecycle. The database this connection is going to use as the initial catalog. The schema, so if this connection is used to as a destination, This is what defines which schema that destination component is going to reside in. And then file group. So if this database doesn't exist and it's used as a destination on any of my components, then LeapFrogBI is going to go ahead and create this database for me. And it's going to create a file group, a single file group, and that is going to give it the name that you provide here. The type of authentication. Actually, on the file groups, by default, LeapFrogBI is going to create 4 files within that file group. Authentication type. I've selected Windows Integrated Security. That's what I want to use here. I could have used SQL Server Authentication and provided my username if I wanted to. If I do that, I will have to update my configuration post-deployment because LeapFrogBI is not going to store any passwords. So I did that exact same thing on each of my 3 life cycles. Now I'm going to save that. And as soon as I do, I can see here that now I do have a AdventureWorks connection. This connection will be available to me to utilize by other components. And that's pretty much the basics of a connection component. However, there are some things to keep in mind here. As I pointed out a minute ago, LeapFrogBI is going to manage the objects that this connection defines. So there is a configuration component, which we're going to talk about more when we get to the deployment course. But that configuration, once we run it, is going to look at all of the components that are within my project. All those components are using some source and some destination. The source is typically going to be another component, with the exception of the existing type component or stage components, where we're going to actually use 2 connections, one for the source, one for the destination, because we're moving information from one place to another. So in any case, the destinations are going to be created if they do not exist, if that connection has been utilized by any other component. So don't worry about that right now if it's confusing at all. Basically, we just need to know that a connection component is where we're going to store our connection properties, and these components are going to be available to other components to be utilized. All right, that's it. We'll see you in the next course.